Daniel, this set is so large, and yet your team still has to fill in so much of this world. You were saying off camera that repeating patterns present unique challenges for effects.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Even on this set, we had, when you look at it initially, you kind of go, oh, it's just a big set. But then you realize it's almost a mathematical problem. We have the bridge repeats every 120 degrees.
Yeah.
Then you go and you look at the pipes, and the pipes repeat only every 180 degrees because it needs to play. Its part is what the story is.
Right.
Then you start realizing that when you're seeing repeating patterns, you look down the silo, it becomes very quickly, it just reads like a very long pipe with a spoke kind of structure.
Yeah.
And you need to break it. You need to try and realize what I can do to still retain that kind of scope of a city and look like the way you look at Fifth Avenue and kind of go, I can recognize a city. What kind of triggers that in the horizon all the way up to close to where you're looking from. And it's just about the movement of the crowds, how to break the textures of the concrete, the lights, making it feel like it's not, we couldn't have neon lights everywhere and just put distant signs, so we had to play with our own lighting and just break all those patterns with textures. For example, our farms, as you go further back, we let them kind of bloom and kind of pollute the atmosphere of the silo and just kind of slightly feel like, a distant grow light is kind of a bit stronger and different colors and bringing magentas and cyans into the horizon, but not have them in the warm, close environment of the silo.
I've been walking through the sets here, and they're so immersive. They're so all-enveloping, and yet you were showing me the show reel, and you're still having to provide many times 100% of what's in the frame.
Yes, we were obviously limited with how many variations of this world we can build. And when you start looking into it, we needed to create different. People need to constantly feel like they're moving up and down this place and feel different. Like you want to be able to almost allow the audience to localize themselves in the space. So a lot of times when we moved on the floor, we had to start bringing in our blue screen. As you can see, we have a lot of it.
Yeah.
But just to retain that scope so we can have someone continuously walk from a floor and land on another floor without repeating the same set, without feeling that, oh, it's just one set repeating itself. We wanted to constantly make sure that you feel like, oh, it's a new location, or I'm familiar with that from the previous episode. I know exactly where I am, which is kind of an interesting play with how you make people that don't know the silo slowly get familiar with it and almost feel like by the end of the season they could very quickly go, oh, that's upstairs.
And you must end up with the same thing, like the silo must actually exist in your head.
It's at some point
as a complete thing.
We became the map keepers of the silo because, we look at the blue and we go, oh, if he looks this way, it's the wrong bridge. You need to rotate 120 degrees. The eye line from this bridge, when he looks 10 floors up, actually lands on the wrong bridge. So how do we turn him around to make sure that he's looking at the right person and he's looking back? Because we had a lot of those contexts of continuity between our set and what's happening above us and or below.
Now, I think a lot of people think of special effects as kind of just a toolbox full of known tools, but I know that every shoot brings its own unique, specific challenges. What has been some of the biggest challenges of bringing silo to the screen?
I would say there's been quite a few that kind of require their own solutions. One of the things about this silo is that there's no straight lines, which doesn't seem to strike you originally, but when you start dealing with crowd movements, it becomes a major things you need to solve. Because suddenly you go, oh, when someone walks down a set of stairs, spiral staircase introduces a completely different body language of what it is walking down the stairs. Because
especially if they're on the inside or the outside.
Exactly.
Or the middle. Oh, great.
So we mapped it kind of like we had rules for the silo, but when we break the rules, someone's running up, he doesn't care about the rules of keep right or keep left. Right. So the stride of the stair became a major thing we had to solve how to capture. And we had to build our own set of stairs just for the motion captures to be able to have the correct physicality of if it takes 2 steps down each one of the steps or the very narrow inner kind of stairs, and it creates a completely different angle for the shoulder, the way your eyeline looks when you're careful not to stumble down.
Yeah.
And we had to build a whole texture of that. Then you have how do people step off the bridge or go on that small platform between the two different flights of stairs.
Right.
All those movements had to be captured so that we are not limited by our crowd and that we can continually see people walking on the outer rotundas. So every curve suddenly changed the physicality of how we can capture our movement. And we
That's
had to
crazy.
really
It hadn't occurred to me. So did you end up like parceling out? Because the stairs are getting wider, of course. Did you like separate it into zones so you know I'm walking zone 1, zone 2, zone 3?
we had to, so on this season we're taking it to the next level, and we actually built our stairs in multiple ways so that we can go onto the bridge, off the bridge, and we had a proper flight of stairs because we went on a bigger motion capture set.
Yeah.
Last season, because of limitations of how you need to create the volume of motion capture, we created flight of stairs that are the different strides. So we just had the very narrow inner stride,
Right.
the middle one, and the outer one, and had our stunt team kind of run up and down, walk. They had to, you realize that very quickly, some things feel forced and don't quite work. And so we had to rebuild our motion capture approach for this for the silo. And really, it's how people go around each other, even when you walk in a curved line.
Right, of course.
So I need to push around. And that's what the main thing for the silo was, to not have what I call the classic stadium crowd, which is we have waving, we have cheering and flags. You wanted to not have the train station effect of people just walking back and forth. So we have a lot of stories. If you look in the back of our silo in some of the episodes, you can see a bunch of kids playing hide and seek, because we wanted to feel like a city. You know, it's a place people live in, so it doesn't always have that movement. You have rush hour, early morning, high noon. Every time of day had a different approach, and then we had bespoke events. We had a race, we had a festival. People need to react. Someone is telling them, now we're singing, now we're... So all those things layered up on our crowd build, it became a major challenge for this, for both seasons.
And in season 2, you've got some underwater stuff. I'm curious what challenges are presented by effects underwater.
The idea of closing the door and turning on a garden hose got rejected, so we had to build a way of approaching the silo in a way that it's flooded. It's a new design in a way, because everything you think about a curved world suddenly becomes quite different. The water has its own lensing effect, so all of our round lines become a bit
you're
rounder.
accommodating for the angle of refraction in water. Wow, I hadn't heard that, of course.
Which is one of the things when someone said, oh, we do underwater, you kind of go, that doesn't occur to me. And then you start thinking about it and you start testing and you go, oh, that is something we need to take into account for our camera tracking, for interaction of Juliet and how she deals with it. So all those refractive elements are things that we need to deal with. We need to figure out, give it a look that is dirty, but find ways of... Our silo is very dark as well, so we need to play with what tells the story of a flashlight, rolling on windows. So we cleaned in our model, we created clean spots on windows so that you can catch your own reflection, just to make it a bit scarier and a bit more like a set.
So I'm curious, given that you guys had to shut down for the strike, if during the time the strike was happening, did that give you time and perspective to think about what you were going to do when you came back to it? Did it give you a kind of different...
Yes, it's the problem is when you sit when you sit at home and you think about what I would have done. Actually, we should do it differently. Who do you talk to about it? Because everyone's on strike. So you sit at home and go, that's a really good idea. I should remember that and put it in your small notes and potentially come back to it. We kept working on some elements, so we were lucky enough to have finished shooting part of season 2, so that really helped us.
So you were able to actually continue?
We could continue, and that actually gave us a lot of ideas on what can or should happen.
Because there wasn't such a time crunch, because there's not more shots arriving.
Exactly. We had a section of it. It was a bit of a challenge because we haven't finished shooting. Usually you want to see everything, but it allowed us to really wrap our heads around some of the challenges we're going to deal with the underwater silo, with the underwater sets, which we had to build, and kind of small things, ropes underwater compared to air hose.
Oh, right.
So, when someone goes in, a rope is heavy and sinks, the air hose floats. and then you need to extend it. We went to shoot in the Pinewood tank.
Oh, you have to give your digital cables their own physics,
Go.
of course, right?
Own physics and own movement, and then you frame and you go, oh, that rope is pulling this way, the air hose is pulling that way. Let's wrap our heads around what she's interacting with.
Oh my gosh.
A lot of it is extensions because
Yeah.
we're going so deep underwater that really we couldn't put it into a normal water tank. So
Right.
a lot of it had to be cheats. We had to put her sideways. We had to use water movers to create movement when she's static. So we had divers with
Fans.
Cedos, just pushing water. And
Yeah.
very effective because it pushes the bubble, it pushes the air, and then you feel, oh, I'm reading movement. Then we have to create our parts to help that movement by
Amazing.
having the background move with it.
Well, so after all of this time, you guys are wrapping photography in just a few weeks, but your job doesn't end there. You've got a lot more. You've got a lot more stuff
We
to do.
continue until until you get to see it at home, and maybe a little bit after.
And you guys are working on effects almost right up until the airing. Is that
Yes,
true?
You push. There's a lot of effects, and even on the smaller things when it's just there's something in the window. There's
Yeah.
small fix in the background. A lot of those things we just work on it until you manage to deliver the entire season.
I'm curious. Is there a shot that you feel a tremendous amount of pride over, or like that was like one of your favorites of the season?
On season 1,
Season 1 or season 2?
season 2, it will come. I'll be proud of it when it's done.
Okay.
Until we sign off the last pixel.
Fair.
But I think I'm very happy with the generator room as a sequence. We have a few shots there that are, for me, just
That sequence is one of my favorite engineering sequences in a thing. I was saying to you off camera, a lot of time engineering sequences are strain belief is a nice way to put it. And that one felt really grounded in the world. Rebecca's performance is amazing. What you guys gave her to work on feels so real.
And yeah, it was very important to give her something to actually interact with. It's very easy to drift into, let's just put everything on blue because we're already doing so much blue.
Right.
But it was really about how do we connect, let her have something to work with, let all the cast be in the same place. And at the same time, because of the way the set was structured in height, it was actually split into 3 different sets.
Right.
So we had,
oh, wow.
So a lot of shots you had to solve. How do we get someone to step out in one set and connect with Juliet, who's sitting at the top of a massive
in a totally
turbine,
different room,
which is a different set,
right,
which had to be done because of safety and height. And, we hit the ceiling at some point. So, but how to connect it and how to not limit the director that wanted to be able to move handheld. The energy of the sequence required that motion control was ruled out because of placement, weight, and how to do it. So it became its own kind of challenge of how can we drive this sequence and make it feel very, very real.
Yeah.
And by just vibrations and modeling, there was a lot of animation work that went into making the space, even though it's a background, just you will see there's a lot of vibrations. We looked at a research paper that shoots machines and allows by motion analysis to see micro vibrations that are actually not visible to the naked eye.
Yeah.
And you can see that those things show you the bolts, and we took that into, maybe we should do it on our bolts.
So you were adding vibrations that maybe I can't see, but I can feel?
You can feel it. It just gives it motion blur, it gives it textures that just make it a bit more real. You just tweak it.
Is there a lot of pre-visualization in your process for this show?
There was a certain amount for very challenging sequences that we knew we had to deal with, but surprisingly not, because a lot of it had to be figured out closer to the shoot as you were seeing how easy it is to move up those stairs, how quickly people move. Sometimes you plan, you go, I'll just do this shot and run directly into that shot, and then you realize it will take a good 40 seconds to climb up those stairs that quickly. And how do I stitch those movements without also having everyone ended their day completely shattered, which are grips.
I can
So
only imagine.
running with those cameras up and down those stairs.
Is there something you're particularly looking forward to between now and the end of production? A sequence you're like excited to get your hands dirty with?
Honestly, it's the sequence that's shooting behind us.
The bridge and the IT.
The bridge collapsing. There's something about that space and the way IT came to be from season 1 design being just a door to on this season we needed to build more and expand on it, and just the whole movement of this space suddenly in a very dark new version of our silo. It's differently designed in terms of to sell the life that used to be in the silo.
Right.
But at the same time, we're quite different in lighting. So that's another thing we have to really work with things that, when we did our first silo, it was all very bright. We had a whole light cycles on the ceiling. We built a light dome that can move throughout the day. We had a 24-hour cycle of light simulating sun movement.
Oh, wow.
But we were told, at no point should that feel like a skylight. You shouldn't feel that you look up and you're seeing the sky. You should always feel that they're trapped under a mechanical sun.
Wow.
So we built a whole rig of mirrors and designed. The mirrors have their own micro movements, so it's constantly flipping like a clicker board on a train station, just moving and shifting.
Yeah.
And we turn it on and off, but here it's broken. It doesn't exist, so that whole main light source is gone.
Wow.
We had to find those solutions of how to create that moonlight, but still have this element that lives above them. But now it's destroyed, so we're in a world that's a lot darker, and it's a bit of a nice change in lighting, which gives a new face for our expansion.
Well, it's been amazing walking around, seeing both the practical version of the world and seeing what you guys are doing with it digitally. It's really thrilling. Daniel, thank you
very much.
so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much to Apple TV Plus for having us on set. We had a blast. Silo Season 1 and 2 are now streaming on Apple TV Plus.